Yo, what's up with y'all? Hold on. I'll be right back. Where's my phone? Oh, it's right here. Okay, y'all. New series alert. You know what you know what's going on. All right, boom. I'm not consistent with reading. I want to be consistent with reading. So what did I tell y'all? You just put it on the internet, and then you have to you don't want to be a liar. So if you put it on the internet, then you're forced to oblige, right? That's my ideology. That's what's been working for me. So I like this book. I mean, it's whatever. It's cool. I'm learning about the Italians and how they discovered. They didn't really discover it. They just were the first to copyright it. The Arabs and the Indians taught them. But just so you know, because I gotta put that in there. I gotta put it on wax. So I'm reading this. I'm gonna just do it on live. Okay. Rest in peace to my Grandma Cece. She's the my placeholder for the book. All right. I want to see y'all copy this. I'm looking right in the camera. I want to see y'all copy this. Then show them like do this, cause you getting all the game and all that. So do this. Read online. I want to see you, look, let me take my hat. I want to see you artists read. I want to see y'all read online, bro. That's what I want to see. Let's really see who really like. Y'all get paid for words and stuff like that, right? So like, read online. Okay, let me chill out. Foreign teams, Pope exchange. Where am I? Where am I? Where am I? Where am I? In town, Pope exchange. Let me go back. At least the rule came to an end. All right, so yeah, shout out to Clark. The last thing that I read over here, Anthony Clark, he was a commander in the British Army. They was about to take out Italy, but then he had realized he had read something and he was in the moment of what he had read prior, and he didn't realize he was about to bomb the area where he was because that was his opposition. So he had to do that job. He had to go finish him. So he was about to finish him, but then he was like, "Wait, I learned about this." And then he saw the picture, Piero's resurrection. That's when they started doing that little switch to, when they made Jesus white. Boom. So we're live, right? Let me make sure we're live. Because I want to put this all on wax. Let me make sure this is live. Is it live? Yeah, I'm live. Good, I'm live. All right, cool. So yeah, I wanted to make sure that I was on wax. This is when I think that was around the time when they started to switch Jesus to fair skin. I mean, hey, you want to make him easier to follow. You want him to look like you, right? So I get it. I'm getting over like a cold. My thing is doing the thing. So anyway, that's what happened. Clark was about to get down and bomb, like wipe that city off the map. Then he had realized he did research on that area, and then he was like, "Damn, this is sacred land. I don't want to be the person that takes it out." So he spared them, and then eventually they gave him a city, or not a city, a road. They were like, "Hey, thanks for not wiping us off the map. You can have a road." So they say his name every time, like Clark is somewhere in the middle. If you see Clark Street or whatever it is in Italy, just know it's because of that. Hey, now when I'm in Italy, I'm gonna look for Clark Street. I've never been to Italy, by the way. And then who was the guy that painted it? Pacioli? No, Pacioli is they said Pacioli, he's one of the merchant guys. Piero's Resurrection. San Sepulcro. Piero della Francesca. He's the one that made Piero's Resurrection. Him and Leonardo DiCap, no, not DiCaprio, Da Vinci. Damn, all these names. DiCaprio's alive right now. I think that's the that's the actor. Leonardo Le, Leon Battista Alberti and Leonardo da Vinci. They was all cool with with these people. I'm learning about this right now, so I'm still a little confused. But oh, Luca Pacioli, he's the one that started the shit off. Then there was another guy that actually put it on wax, that had like put it on paper. That's what I'm trying to figure out who that is. I think since Pulcro was the one that put it on wax. I don't know, man. Anyway, I'm gonna finish where I'm at. What the spell? We just gotta keep going. All right. Gave the town to Pope in exchange for a papal letter, which legitimized their births. For the next 10 years, the town was fought over by the nearby Florentines, allied with the new Pope Eugenius IV, against their common enemy Milan. The conflict ended in 1440 with the Battle of Anghiari and the delivery of Sense Pulchro into Florentine hands. Thanks to its new rulers by the late 1440s, the town had become a rich trading center with a population of about 4,300 nearby Urbino major city. Urbino, a major city, had a population of more than 6,000 at the height of its power and spent its newfound. I'm still reading, by the way. I know I'm off to the side, but I'm still reading. Let me come this way because you see the logo. The logo's right there, so it's in the way. It's cool. You don't gotta see the whole, you know. His dad is young, 6,000 at the height of its power, and spent its newfound wealth on building palazzos and commissioning works of art, mostly from Piero della Francesca. The first we know of Luca Pacioli is that as a young boy he was taken into the family of the local merchant Folco de Belfolci, probably as an apprentice, where he would have been introduced to mathematicians. To understand the full force of Luca Pacioli's contribution to the history of accounting, we must understand the profound transformation that occurred in Italian mathematics after the fall of Constantinople to the Turks in 1453. Story of mathematics. In the 15th century, Italian mathematics absorbed two significant new elements: Hindu-Arabic arithmetic and ancient Greek mathematics, which was rediscovered first through secondary Arabic sources. So they learned from. So they learned. Hold on. You see my face? They learned from the Arabs, or well, the Muslims, because it could have been African Muslims. It's there are Arab people in Africa too. So we are all one. Hello. Sources, and later after the fall of Constantinople through the Greek originals. The same century also saw the merging of two streams of mathematicians which had been split since the 6th century BC, the philosophical speculative mathematics of Pythagoras and his successors, and the commercial arithmetic used by merchants. The mix would prove epoch-changing. It spurred the gradual rise of mathematics to its eventual usurpation. Usurpation. What does that mean? Usurpation. Usurpation. Usurp.
Usurpation.
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 The taking a position of power or importance unlawfully or by force. Their apathy has permitted the usurpation of the throne by a truly evil man. I don't understand. Taking someone's power or property by force. Okay, okay.
Usurpation.
Okay. Okay, bet. I want that. Usurpation. New words or phrases. Usurpation. Taking someone's position. Position of power by force. So when someone is overthrown, so like for you musical people, because y'all like to not appreciate what y'all got going on, it's gonna lead to your usurpation. How I say that shit one more time? So, let me say that shit. It's gonna lead to your. Let me go back. Let me go back. What is it?
Usurpation.
Usurpation. Hey, I have wood. What's up with you, brother? I see you in the chat, brother. How you doing? Good to see your name. I haven't seen you in a while. That's Wood, right? I think that's Wood. I have Wood. That's you? Yeah, that's you. What's up, bro? How you been, bro? Good to see you. Man, I'm trying to start a new series reading. Streaming more aspects of my life, right? So are you active on TikTok by chance? Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm on TikTok. What's up? What you want me to follow you on TikTok? Bro, listen, I used to read more way before. Like, you know, my parents used to make me do like book reports and shit like that. So I used to read way before, but I stopped. And my vocabulary has taken like a big hit. I used to always like, you know, use big words and stuff. I stopped doing this. So I need to, if I say I want to like, you know, decode words for a living, I need to actually strengthen my tool. And this is how you strengthen it, you know, by reading. So you said, no, just wondering if you post. Yeah, yeah, I be posting all the time on TikTok. Let me show you my TikTok.
Voice Smart Plus campaign.
My TikTok is right here, man. I don't know if you can see it. Manhakim. Same thing as the see, I had uploaded this today. Yeah. So yeah, I'm on there. Yeah, follow me, bro. I'll follow you back and all that, bro. I'm really happy to see you though. I haven't seen man. It's been a long time, bro. Remember last year? We was man. Last year we was locked in during the winter time. It's different though. We're in a different setting, more comfortable. Thank God, more comfortable setting. Last year I was walking around outside around this time. If you remember, you was in there with me. All right, let me keep reading. Where was I? Your sir. I don't even remember the word I was looking for. Usurpation of Latin as the lingua franca of Europe, and ushered in the new era, the age of science. Mathematics springs from two ancient sources born from the dark arts of Egyptian priests and the commercial activities of early merchants. The title of the title of one of the first known works of mathematicians, the Egyptian papyrus Directions for Knowing All Things, 2000, clearly conveys its connection to esoteric knowledge and its perceived access to the power of darkness. The papyrus deals with the fractions, arithmetic, and geometry and was intended for priests. A warning attributed to Augustine some 2,400 years later revealed the abiding association of mathematics with magic and dark arts. The good Christian should beware of mathematics and all those who make empty prophecies. The danger already exists. The mathematicians have made a covenant with the devil to darken the spirit of confined man in the bonds of hell, as we shall see. The association of maths and magic is one that would be maintained by Luca Pacioli and continues this day. You said it's really been a while. I know it's been a long time, bro. It's been a long time. I haven't seen, bro. We both been busy though. I'm sure that you were busy with school, and then me, I'm here. I've been cooking up. Hey, bro. Say what you want to say. Every day I clock in, bro. I clock in. I make myself a beat. I go on live. I do something, bro. I don't know. Say what you want. So yeah, bro. But stay busy, bro. Stay busier than me. According to the ancient Greek historian Herodotus, geometry, which would become the sacred speculative branch of mathematics, originated in Egypt and was associated with the land surveying required for the annual flooding of the Nile. Hence, geometry from the Greek for earth and measure. Commercial arithmetic, on the other hand, was developed by Phoenicians, the Phoenicians, the great merchants of the early Mediterranean. But ironically, it was the son of the Phoenician merchant who purified mathematics by lifting it above the mundane needs of merchants to the realm of metaphysics. Pythagoras. Pythagoras and his followers boasted that in mathematics they saw pure knowledge and not the wealth its application might bring. And so from Pythagoras onwards, mathematics was split into two streams. The calculations used by merchants in their daily business transactions, and the numbers used by philosophers to express the secret harmonies of the universe. The Pythagoreans divided mathematics into four subjects: arithmetic, or number absolute; music, numbers applied. Math is music? Music is math? Geometry, magnitudes at rest; and astronomy, magnitudes in motion. Cool. Uh, with geometry as the cornerstone of all education. These four subjects were known as the quadrivium and became the foundation of liberal education in Europe until the Renaissance. Pythagoreans believed the numerical relationships they found in the nature, such as pi, could explain the order and harmony of the universe. That numbers in some way constitute the universe and are not just the tools used to measure and describe it as generally considered them to be today. The idea that the secrets of the universe are found in numbers influenced generations of ancient Greek philosophers, including Plato, who wrote over the gateway to his academy. Let non-ignorant of geometry enter my door. Plato also believed that numbers were the language of the created world, as he wrote in one of his last read dialogues, the Timaeus. God made the sun so that the animals could learn arithmetic. Without the succession of days and night, one supposes we should not have thought of numbers. The sight of day and night, months, years has created knowledge of numbers. I said number and given us the conception of time. And hence came philosophy. Plato's belief in the metaphysical properties of numbers profoundly shaped Western philosophy, theology, and mathematics. Even Archimedes, the greatest mathematician of the ancient world, famous for applying mathematics to the problems of everyday life in his inventions such as the siege engine and screw pump, thought it undesirable for a philosopher to seek to apply the results of science to any practical use. The collected knowledge of ancient Greek mathematics, including the work of Pythagoras, was compiled by the Greek mathematician Euclid in around 300 BC in his book Elements, which became a standard textbook in ancient Greece and the basis of education in Europe until the 20th century. And Euclid's Elements was the most successful textbook ever written until it fell out of use in the 1900s. The second best-selling book of all time after the Bible. Following they call the Bible a book. Following the fall of Rome, Greek math, like why would, I want y'all to think about that though. Why is the Bible considered like, is it copywritten? Is the Bible copywritten? Hold on. King James Bible edition, no international copyright, it requires permission. New international version, English standard version, public domain, no copyright, King James version, American standard version. So public domain, and then some of the versions have okay. Let me see. Is the Quran copyrighted? Can't play one side. I gotta play both sides. All right, boom. He says Quran. No, the original Arabic text of the Quran is in the public domains and is not copyrighted. So they both in the public domains. Okay, I can't say nothing. I'm gonna shut my mouth. Following the fall of Rome, Greek mathematicians survived in Europe in fragmented and reduced form in the cathedral, monastery, school set up by Charlemagne in the 8th century, which taught the Pythagorean mathematical quadrivium alongside the trivium of grammar, logic, and rhetoric. The mathematics taught, however, was basic enough arithmetic to keep accounts, music for church services, geometry for land surveying, and astrology to calculate the dates of Christian feasts and fasts. It used Roman numerals, the abacus, and Latin translations of Greek mathematics, especially Euclid, by the Roman scholar Boethius, 480 to 524. The mathematics known to the educated of medieval Europe was rudimentary, held in check by the Christian church. But in the Arab world, it blossomed. By 1200, the Arabs were the most sophisticated mathematicians of the Mediterranean. I mean, they taught y'all. We try to rewrite that shit, bro. The Arabs are the ones that taught them. They adopted in the Arabs, and who taught the Arabs? It was probably Mansa Musa and them peoples. Let me look into the camera and say that again. It was probably Mansa and his people that taught uh, that pilgrimage, man. There was a lot done on that pilgrimage. There was a lot done on that pilgrimage, I'm telling you. The mathematics taught, however, was basic. I already said that. The mathematics known to the educated of medieval Europe was rudimentary, held in check by a Christian church. But in the Arab world, it blossomed. By 1200, the Arabs were the most sophisticated mathematicians in the Mediterranean. They adopted and developed Hindu numerals, algebraic algebra, and arithmetic, including the rule of three. This is a simple method of finding an unknown from three known interrelated items, which was used to solve most problems of commercial arithmetic. For example, there's a fish that weighs 60 pounds, the head weighs three-fifths of the body weight, and the tail weighs one-third of the head. I ask what the body weighs. I hate those type of questions, by the way. I can't even, like, I don't understand how to do that shit. One of the greatest Arabic mathematicians was Muhammad ibn Musa. Oh, shit. One of the greatest Arabic mathematicians was Muhammad ibn Musa al-Khwarizmi of Baghdad. It's always a Musa. His back of addition and subtraction, according to the Hindu calculation written in the ninth century, is the earliest known work on Hindu mathematics, and its 12th century translation into. So, what do you do? Addition and subtraction, according to the Hindu calculation written in the 19th century or 9th century, is the earliest known work on Hindu mathematics, and its 12th century translation into Latin became one of the key sources of the subject in Europe. Al-Khwarizmi also wrote a treatise on algebra, Kitab al-Jabbar wa Muqabala, the Book of Restoring and Balancing, which gave us the English word algebra from the algebra 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 jabber aljabber yeah aljabber of the title. Al-Khwarizmi was the first to regard algebra as a branch of mathematics of equal importance to the traditionally more glamorous geometry, and he established algebraic analysis as a discipline in its own right. Arab mathematics and its Greek sources were first introduced to the Western Europe through Muslim Spain, where two important translations were made in the 12th century. The first of Euclid's Elements was by the intrepid English monk Abdelard of Bath, who traveled to Spain in search of Arab learning and discovered their work on Euclid at a famous Moorish college in Cordova. The other great mathematical translation of the 12th century of the Khwarizmi's work, transcribed into Latin by Robert of Chester. Another, its itinerant, itinerant, yeah. She said they got to do it like going somewhere. Like the list of. Anyway, where was I? Yeah, like itinerary. Itinerant? Were made in Bath. Where was I? Okay, another itinerant Englishman who traveled to Spain seeking its cutting edge Islamic scholarship. Robert's translation introduced European scholars to Hindu Arabic mathematics, but as we have seen, Europeans were slow to adopt the new mathematics from the East, only with the appearance in 1202 of Fibonacci's Liberace, originally titled Algebra et Al-Muqabala, after a Khwarizmi treaty. did the use of Hindu Arabic notation and algebra begin to spread through Europe, checked at every point by vehement resistance from the church and the guilds. When in the same century that Liberici appeared and the prophetic philosopher Roger Bacon attempted to promote Hindu Arabic mathematics as the foundation for all science, the key to a university education and a necessary study for theologians who believed he ought to abound in power of numbering. He was accused by the Church of magic and condemned to life imprisonment. Rene Descartes would argue something similar 4 centuries later and revolutionized European philosophy. But while scholarly, but while scholarly, but while scholarly, Europe rejected and even outlawed Hindu Arabic learning. The new mathematics found a ready audience among the merchants of Italy, where it became known as abaco mathematics. According to the Pacioli abaco derived from abaco derived from either a corrupted form of Modo Arabico or a Greek word because they had little to do with the abacus. In fact, it was a method of calculation that made the abacus redundant. Abaco of calculation made possible what we now take for granted, the adding and subtracting, multiplying and dividing of Hindu Arabic numerals on pen and paper rather than the old two-part system which used counters on the board to calculate a sum and then record the result in Roman numerals, leaving no written trace of the calculation made. Fibonacci Liberace spawned an alternate education system to the Latin-based monastery schools of Italy. The Abaci schools intended for the sons of merchants who were taught Hindu Arabic mathematics and learned to read and write in their native tongues, an innovation that would encourage both the codification and standardization 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 of vernacular languages of Europe, and the demise of Latin as the language of scholarship. By 1338, Florence had 6 of these abaco schools for boys aged 11 and older who aspired to trade. Very few girls attended school. Through these schools, Italy's population became one of the best educated in Europe. The teachers of these budding merchants were called abaches, and many wrote their own vernacular textbooks based on the problems of solutions contained in Fibonacci's Latin Liber Abaci. This major and influential mathematical tradition to which Luca Pacioli belonged was virtually unknown to historians until the 1960s, when some 288 Abaco manuscripts dated from 1290 to 1600 and 153 printed Abaco treatises, most of which deal with algebra, were discovered in Italian archives, as well as introducing Hindu Arabic notations to centuries of Italian schoolboys and giving rules of addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. These treatises included general rules of solving common commercial problems such as a discount, partnership division, barter, and currency exchange, mostly using the rule of 3. And in doing so, they took mathematics beyond the privileged enclave of clergy, scholars, and nobility to the people. Abaco mathematics would unleash first a cultural revolution by making possible the mathematics of perspective. It transformed Italian art, sculpture, and architecture in the 15th century, and ultimately a revolution in science through its focus on the mathematical observation. I realize it's not a lot of world leaders that had videos of them reading out loud, or like just like people that speak and shit. Can they really read? Can you read? Cause I know you watch it. Can you read? Can you read? I can. I don't like to, but I know I can. But I don't like to, and I'm not consistent. But maybe if I put it on wax, maybe then I'll be consistent. It work with the music. It work with okay. Maybe the reading. This is what I got. I just got to put everything on wax, and then that's how we do it. Can you read? You can flex 100,000 cash. You can do all this. Can you read on live? Can you do that? I'm talking to you because I know you watching, bro. Yeah, you face ass man. Tired of y'all. Y'all keep playing, bro. In the rarefield atmosphere of the European universities, which begin to emerge around 1100 in Paris, Bologna, Salerno, Italy. I'm sorry if I'm butchering the words, man. I'm not used to these words. Mathematical techniques was regarded mostly as fictitious. They could provide useful information for computing such things as heavenly positions to determine the dates of celebrating Easter and other Christian festivals, but no more. In complete contrast to the Abacho tradition, university mathematicians was not considered to be a language for use in daily life. It was taught as astrology. Even in 1510s, Pacioli was referred to as an astrologer to Pope Leo X, and as late as 1598, the professor of mathematics at Pisa was required to lecture on astrology, and only in around 1400 did it begin very slowly to become independent university discipline to be studied for its own sake and for its broader application to the physical world. And not until the mid 1500s had astrology been renamed mathematics in the universities of Italy, except in Ferrara, the education of Luca Pacioli. So where does the father of accountant fit in the divided stream of Italian mathematics and education? Pacioli would have attended his local communal school, which was already well, esta- well established by the end of the 14th century, set up and paid for by the town to teach its son reading, writing, and grammar. Each year, about 100 boys from ages 6 to 15 attended San Sepolcro's communal school, which quickly assumed a vital role in maintaining the order of town life and especially in managing its children. This is made clear in the letter dated 20 of November 1392, in which the townspeople, everyone of the land of San Sepolcro, made the following appeal to the ruling Malastesta Lord. We have always customarily had a salaried foreign master of grammar, good and sufficient, who was paid through your financial official in the quantity of 42 florins per year. But the last master had not been paid properly and had left. Due to this, our children and our little ones devalue themselves and have become evil. How useful it is to the community of the to territories. I don't know territories? What the hell? To have a master of grammar. And how damaging. Y'all can flex all that bread. Can you read on live? Can you read? Man, you niggas can't even read, bruh. Flex the bread all you want, bro. Can you read? You can't read. That's why y'all being good. Yeah, alright. It's coming, bro. How useful is it, a community of territories, to have master of grammar? And how damaging and defective it is to have one should be clear and manifest to our magnificent Lord. As a student in South Sepulchro, after its takeover by Florence, Pacioli would have been taught the remnants of old medieval scholasticism based on the quadrivium and trivium. Come on, these words are weird though. These are weird words. It's not like these words are like, these are not like active words in our vernacular. We don't talk like this. Trivium, quadrivium, scholasticism. Like, come on. Boethius, as well as the New Florentine humanism. There is no surviving record of Abaco school or master in sepulchra. But whatever mathematics Pacioli was able to glean during his boyhood in town, probably through his apprenticeship with Falco de Belfoci, it was enough to inspire him to devote his entire life to its study. Here he was introduced to a new and agile system of notation, Hindu Arabic numerals, which simultaneously made and recorded mathematical calculations, and he must have been struck by the sheer power and magic of articulation he was suddenly capable of. Inscrutable to most Europeans only 500 years ago, Hindu Arabic mathematics seems so normal to us today. Our civilization depends upon it, that we forget the enormity of revolution required to establish it as a norm and thereby produce our mathematical quantitative approach to reality. Pacioli lived through the early decades of morphing of Italian mathematics from the medieval Roman to the fusion of Hindu, Arabic, and Greek, and its application to every area of 15th century life, notable those two most famous to us in the 21st century, Renaissance painting and architecture. It was Abacho mathematics that made it possible in the 1430s. Brunelleschi's 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 celebrated dome of Cathedral of Santa Maria del Fiore, which still dominates the skyline of Florence almost 600 years later. And San Spolcro was the home of the century's greatest exponent of the new mathematics, Piero della Francesca, known in his day as much for his genius as a mathematician as for his talent as a painter. Piero wrote three treatises of mathematics, Trattato de Bacco and Abaco treatise, De Prospectiva Pingendi on the application of the maths to painting, and Libilis de Quinque or Quinque Coribus Regularibus Regardly. I can't read. Oh shit. His attempt to reduce all visual appearance to five key three-dimensional geometric shapes known as Platonic solids, which were believed to symbolize divine perfection in order. As was typical in those fledgling days of print, his treatises were never published in printed form, but remained in manuscript held in the library of Piero's friend, the Duke of Urbino. Although Piero was long amused to have been Pacioli's teacher, recent scholarships has found no records of his ever having been a teacher, let alone teaching mathematics to Pacioli. Whatever the case, before Pacioli left San Sepolcro for Venice in 1464 to become an Abaco teacher, he had absorbed the lessons of Piero della Francesca, either directly as a student or indirectly through Piero's influence of the culture of his town. Pacioli later based much of his own work, on Piero's treatise and reproduced parts of the verbatim, as he sometimes acknowledges. And in this treatise, I promise to give you a full knowledge of perspective by means of the documents of countrymen and contemporary, the masters of his field, Magister Petro de Francisci, who has already prepared a very valuable compendium on this subject, which we well understand. And for this reason, the two men's names have been permanently joined in annals of history, starting with the Giorgio Vasari's lives of the most eminent painters, sculptors, and architects, published in 1550s. Vasari devotes a chapter of his lives of the most eminent painters to Piero della Francesca, and mentions in only his second paragraph the monk Luca Pacioli as Fra Luca del Bagro. With several strokes of his quill, Vasari bound to two men together, bound the two men together for all the time, writing. The man who should have tried his best to increase Piero's glory and reputation since he had learned everything he knew from him, instead wickedly, maliciously sought to remove his teacher's name and usurp for himself an honor due to Piero's alone by publishing under his own name. Boom! I bet. That is Fra Luca del Borgo. All the efforts of that good old man who, besides excelling in his sciences mentioned above, also excelled in painting. So he learned from the guy and they tried like publish it. Vasari continues with his praise of Piero and damnation of Pacioli. Also, Pierre increase. Oh, Pierre Pacioli published the book. Piero's the one that did it. Okay, bet. Yeah, yeah. He copyrighted it. That's they're the ones that probably made that shit famous. Not friends. Not friends. Not friends. Bessard continues, the quality of Piero's books is so excellent that they have quite deservedly acquired for Piero the reputation of the greatest geometrician who lived in his times, and yet his student Pacioli, Vasari claims, passed them off as his own work. It was Vasari who started the rumor that Pacioli had been Piero's student. The first and only book-length biography of Pacioli, Noro wrote Luca Pacioli and His Times, 1942, by R. Emmett Taylor, elaborates on Vasari's version of the story. According to Taylor, it was Piero who awakened in Pacioli a desire to put mathematics to work by taking it out of libraries where it had been slumbered so long and to use it in everyday life. Among the scraps of evidence given by historians for their alleged relationship is Piero's inclusion of the portrait of Pacioli in the mysterious Montefeltro altarpiece now in Milan, the Madonna and Child with Stains, commissioned by Federico de Montefeltro of Urbino. Here, Pacioli is said to appear as the Dominican Saint Peter Martyr, the second saint from the right, portrayed with the characteristics and distinctiveness head with wounds still bleeding. Saint Peter Martyr was killed by a blow to the head in 1252 by an assassin hired by two Venetians. That this is Pacioli's portrait is a widely held and plausible view, first proposed by the Italian historian and maintained by the rigorous economic historian Basil Yemi, who is not given to flights or fancy. The face of Saint Peter Martyr in the portrait does bear a striking resemblance to the only official portrait of Pacioli. Both share the same dark hair, hooded eyes, set mouth with thin lips and strong jewelry jaw. What is clear, however, from the trajectory of Pacioli's life is that he had the gift for developing relationships with prominent or influential men, especially the leading artists of his day, including the painters Gentili and Giovanni Bellini, Sandro Botticelli, Domenico Ghirlandaio, Pietro Perugino, Perugino, and Leonardo da Vinci. And so it is possible that he sought out Piero and Sanchepolcro, but although Pacioli refers to Piero several times in his work as a fellow countryman, he never calls him his teacher, and it is more likely that he came across Piero's mathematics in the library of Urbino after Piero's death in 1492. So he probably learned about it after the nigga died. Oh, okay. So there's two. So either he stole or he. I mean, he still was influenced. Regardless, he was influenced by Piero. Regardless of the nature of the relationship, Piero and the mathematics were central to Pacioli's own life and work. And regardless of how he acquired it, the young Pacioli was armed with knowledge of Abaco mathematics when he set off to seek his fortune in the New York of 15th century Europe, Venice. Luca Pacioli from Sanspolcro to celebrity. Learn multiplication from the root of Maestro Luca. Leonardo da Vinci list of things to do in 1495. We know a poet like Homer, an orator like Demosthenes, Demosthenes, a philosopher like Aristotle. But first of all, the entire Italian world deems its right to brother Luca Pacioli for restoring the arithmetical science. Daniel Caetani of Cremona. Italians, I love y'all, man. Y'all got some hard. It's hard to pronounce some of y'all's words. In 1464, age 19, Luca Pacioli left the small market town of Sanspolcro and traveled east along the ruined Romans road frequented by outcasts and outlaws to one of the largest and most cosmopolitic, cosmopolitan cities in Europe, Venice. Writer Jan Morris conjures its moody environs. Well, this damp expanse, speckled with islets, clogged with mudbanks and half-drowned fields, protected from the sea by its narrow strands, this place of beautiful desolation in the Venetian lagoon, presiding over the realm where lagoon meets Grand Canal, is the former power center of Venetian Republic, the Doge Palace, and our architectural fusion of East and West described by Ruskin as the central building of the world. Further along the Grand Canal stands the Rialto, the wall streets of Pacioli age. Here the first state bank of the Europe was opened in the 12th century. For the next 300 years, and Rialto dominated international currency exchanges from England to Egypt. In the late 13th century, the Venetian ducat or coin of dukedom, uh, usurped Florence's forino to become the monetary standard of trade throughout the known world. In 1472, the Venetian Senate attested to its significance when it declared the money of our dominion are the new sinews, nay, even the soul of this republic. The ducat was protected above all else, and anyone caught violating it was severely punished. Those who debased the ducat had their right hand cut off. Men caught coining were blinded, while women had their noses cut off. What the fuck? Why are they so brutal to women? It was commercial dominance Venice still enjoyed when the teenage Pacioli first beheld its magnificence. By the 1460s, the population of Venice was about 150,000, making it the third largest city in the continent after Paris and Naples. For the moment, Venice still had a sway over the Mediterranean despite the relatively recent conquest by the Ottoman Turks of its major trading Constantinople in 1453. Unlike the other Italian cities, Venice put the demands of commerce high above the rule of the church. 1 year after Turkish defeat Constantinople, the Venetian Republic signed a peace treaty with the Ottoman Empire, the enemy of the Christendom, and continued business as usual, that is, when they were not embroiled in one of their many clashes. For its forbidden trade with the infidel, Venice incurred the wrath of the Pope and was ex- excommunicated several times during the 15th century. Pragmatism was the guiding principle of Venice and had brought its stupendous wealth and power. Its rise to commercial prominence began in the ninth century, founded on its favorable terms of trade with the Byzantine Empire, its monopoly of salt, a commodity that more desirable than gold for its ability to preserve food, and its rules of waves. Venice's relationships with the sea were so essential to its survival that it was celebrated annually in an elaborate wedding ceremony. For 8 centuries, from 997, the city of Venice, the city of my man Juan just texted me. My fault, y'all. I'm doom scrolling. I don't know if y'all can see. I'm gonna get back to reading. Give me a second, man. Let me just give me a second. Where was I? I don't even know where I was. Lagoon. Presiding over, I already said that. Grand Canal Rialto. Here's the first state bank of Europe was opened in the 12th century. For the next 300 years, Rialto dominated international currency exchanges from England to Egypt. In the late 13th century, the Venetian Ducato, or I already read all this. I'm down here. Every year, on Ascension Day of the Doge, sailed across the lagoon in the full wedding regalia to the entrance to Adriatic and tossed a diamond ring into its briny depths, vowing, O sea, we wed thee in sign of our true and everlasting dominion. The might of Venice was built on such seamless binding of spiritual ritual with commercial advantage and political pragmatism. Even the tale of her ruling Saint Mark's, the evangelist, said to have been shipwrecked. The lagoon is in fact a story of subterfuge and mercantile opportunism. St. Mark's mummified body was stolen from a church in Alexandria in 828 by two Venetian merchants and presented to the Doge in its new palace, and thus became the patron saint of Venice, uh, usurping its original and all but forgotten Saint Theodore. The abduction of Saint Mark, a superior saint to Theodore, signified the city's growing independence and influence. Its rule was further extended in 1203 when its 88-year-old Doge Enrico Dandolo diverted a group of pilgrims heading peacefully to the Holy Land and tricked them into conquering Constantinople for Venice instead. They returned with the whole of Byzantine Byzantine treasure, including the four bronze horses now in the Museum of the Saint Marco, and so the foundations of the Venetian Maritime Empire, and its prodigious wealth were laid. Venice controlled the mercantile traffic of Constantinople. I know I'm not saying that right until 1453. The busy life of one Venetian merchant based in Constantinople before its sacking, Giacomo, Giacomo Badore, is preserved in the pages of his ledger, the only commercial document to have survived the city's destruction in its entirety, just as the book Francisco Dettini of Prato are cutting edge 14th century commercial practice, so the innovative Badur is an exemplar of 15th century Venetian businessmen, written from 1436 to 1439. Entirely in the new Hindu-Arabic numerals, Badur's ledger is an invaluable record of Venetian merchant life and of the hectic commercial activity of Levant. Badur was a nobleman who for over 3 years ran a commercial venture in Constantinople. uh, Constantinople, the meeting place of trade routes of Europe and Asia, trading for himself as an agent of Venetian merchants in the busy bazaars of Constantinople. He bought spices, incense, leather, wool, and slaves to the ship back to Venice for his brother to sell it on the Venetian market. Ooh, they was working with slaves. The first 2 weeks of November and June were always Badur's busiest times because it was then that his fleet prepared for its return trip to Italy. Its compliance with Venetian Senate, which required merchants to return to Venice at Christmas time and again in July to ensure a regular marketing of goods in the city. To escape the daily grind of Byzantine marketplace, Badur rented a villa in suburban Pira, a Genos colony on the coast nearby. Venetian trade was closely controlled by the Senate, and the four galleys Badur took Constantinople were armed and probably accompanied by warships. The dangers of sea travel, including natural disasters, the Turkish peril, led to the uh, development of maritime insurance and industry new in Badur's day, and one into he ventured, charging a premium of 3 to 19%, depending on the risk factor. Badur suffered only one insurance loss over 3 years, a testament to the protection provided by the Venetian Navy to its merchants. On reaching Constantinople, Badur spent his first week unloading his wares and distributing the bills of exchange he had brought from Venice. The bill of exchange, Lettera di Cambio, and the bank transfer, Scritta di Banco, were the two credit instruments of Renaissance businessmen and served their interests very well. One took care of the fund transfers between merchants living in different cities, and the other of fund transfers within a local market. The bill of exchange was widely used in Renaissance finance. Its primary purpose was to allow its primary purpose was to allow the transfer of the funds between resident merchants and their foreign agents without the risk involved in shipping gold or other precious assets. It also served as a borrowing medium. Badur charged a commission of 1% for honoring these bills and made no attempt to disguise the interest payments, as was usual in Renaissance finance due to the church's opposition to usury. In defiance of official church policy, Venetian attitudes to interest rates were closer to our own. They considered it legitimate to borrow money as interest as long as it was determined by the market and was practiced openly. If the interest rate was reasonable, around 5 to 8%, the Venetian courts would enforce the collection of a contract. To honor his bills of exchange, Medora had at least four accounts with local bankers in Constantinople, where banking was organized along the same lines as on the Rialto. Bank's primary function was not to lend money, but to transfer the funds of its depositors, who personally presented themselves to authorize the transfer of money to creditor accounts in different cities. Most importantly, Bador kept his books using systems that were essentially double entry despite its inaccuracies. For example, his ledger does not balance exactly. His ledger, which mainly recorded accounts receivable and accounts payable, shows debits on the left-handed page and credits on the facing page. Uh, a two-column system that was the hallmark of Venetian double entry and is still used today. But unlike today's accountants, Badura was not concerned with problems of valuation. He recorded his acquisitions of merchandise at cost using market value, or when the transaction was not made with money in the marketplace, barter was still common. Estimate money values. He also used a profit and loss account to record his net income so that he could regularly assess the health of his business. As in many of the early ledgers, the entries of Bedur's ledgers are paragraph form, with rough column of monetary values in the right-hand margin denominated in Byzantine money. Bedur was of Byzantine currency entailed constant conversion between Venetian ducats and Turkish aspiri. Calculations he made using the ever fluctuating exchange rates determines at the Rialto. This invaluable information was conveyed to him via his regular correspondence with Venice. The Rialto's busy foreign exchange market provided regular exchange rate updates for the many currency conversions carried out daily in Venice, the center of international trade. So success did the merchants of Venice become that by the 14th century traders were traveling across oh man, where am I? Across Europe to the Rialto, and sending their sons to learn from their expertise in the commercial arts, especially about arithmetic, currency exchange, and their famous bookkeeping system. I need water. Merchants arrived from Germany in such great numbers that a five-story complex known as Fadaci de Tedeschi, man, these names, or trading post of Germans, was built near the Rialto to accommodate them. And so it was natural that an ambitious young man, such as Luca Pacioli, with a flair for abaco mathematics, should seek his fortune in Venice. When Pacioli arrived in Venice in the 1400s, its immense wealth was mirrored and decadence distinct of its canals was disguised by incense, perfumes, and spices, and its inhabitants were afflicted with malaria, the plague, and persistent lassitude. A celebrated Venetian physician of the day attributed their ill health to sexual excesses, gluttony, a sedentary life, and sudden changes in temperature. I'll have you know, we still struggle with all those things today. The choir of San Marco was known throughout Europe, and music filled the streets. Bands, as we know them today, had just become fashionable, and frenzied dancing was common. The Piazzi San Marco had been given a new look. A Byzantine-styled entrance had been recently added to the Doge Palace to proclaim Venice's position as the major power between Christendom and the East, and to distract attention from the increasing threat posed by Ottoman Empire to Venice's command of the Eastern Mediterranean. The renovation included the gradual repainting of 22 frescoes in the Palazzo's, excuse me, Great Council chambers. Work assigned to Venetian artist Gentile Bellini. His absence from the job in the next decade, in 1479, was a sign of the times. In that year, the Doge lent Gentile to Ottoman Sultan Mehmed II for 2 years as part of the terms of peace treaty between Venice and Ottoman Empire. The teenage Pocholi traveled to Venice to take up a post as a tutor and abaco teacher to the three sons of the wealthy fur merchant Ser Antonio de Rampiazzi, and he seized every opportunity that Venice offered. He continued his mathematical studies and gained valuable commercial experience working as an agent for Rampiazzi, who was based on the Giudecca, an island south of Venice proper. It had originally been a place of banishment and later the first settled of Jews, hence its name. But by the 15th century, it had become a fashionable, high desirable Venetian district. 2 decades later, in 1487, when he was writing his great mathematical encyclopedia in Perugia, 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 Pacioli remembered Rampiasi and his son fondly, referring to his first written work, now lost, an abaco text from 1470 dedicated to the three brothers. Pacioli wrote of their illustrious pupils, the brothers Bartolo and Francesco, and Paolo de Rampiasi of the Giudecca, worthy merchants in Venice, sons of Ser Antonio. Without their paternal and fraternal shadow, I found shelter in their own house. Pacioli lived with the family on the Giudecca, and his primary duty was to teach Rimpiazzi, teenage son, arithmetic and bookkeeping, to equip them from, I said, for the family business. He also took advantage of Venice' uh, preeminence in mathematical studies, attending its Scuola di Rialto, uh, school founded in 1408, which attracted students from across Europe wanting to learn mathematics, astrology, theology, and natural philosophy, and where Pacioli studied under Domenico Baragadino. Venice, Venice's public reader in mathematics. In practice dating from 1433, official professors and lecturers in Venice were well paid by the state from the rates levied on house rents and business profits, and so academic positions there highly sought after. Venice was he's, he was getting his rent paid by the state. Oh my god, that is so funny. That I know why I'm laughing, bro. I know why I'm laughing. That is so funny. This nigga was getting his rent paid by the state, bro. That's insane. That's leverage, but that's like I don't know, bro. That's a blessing. Can't lie to you. That's a big blessing, though. You get the state is paying for your rent. Like yeah, you could be here. We'll give you just enough for rent. Hey yeah. All right, focus, focus, focus. Official professors and lecturers in Venice were well paid by the state from rates levied on house rent and business profits. And so academic. Fuck. Okay. Oh man, like I told y'all I was sick, right? I told y'all that. I told y'all that. Venice was also the first Italian city to endow public lectures in algebra, and Pacioli would himself return to the Scuola di Rialto 40 years later to lecture in mathematics. In his role as an agent for Rompiassi Maritime business, Pacioli traveled throughout the Adriatic and perhaps as far afield as Greece and the Holy Land, Leon Battista Alberti and Eternal City. Man, most importantly, while working with Rampiasi, Pacioli learned bookkeeping Venetian style, a priceless skill he took with him when he left Venice. And Rampiasi's service to travel to Rome with Leon Battista Alberti in 1470, how Pacioli met Alberti, the great Florentine humanist. History does not tell, but Alberti now became Pacioli's trusted mentor and guide to the inner sanctum of Eternal City. Rome was then a city of ruins with a population of no more than 60,000, a small provincial, 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 provincial town whose outlying suburbs had returned to nature, but it was the center of the most powerful European institution of the day, the Church, and Alberti, as a member of its administration in 1471, he was the secretary of the papal chancery, was in position to introduce Pacioli to the men who ruled it, including Pope Paul II, his successor Sixtus IV, and Sixtus's nephew Giuliano della Rovere, who became Pope Julius II in 1503 and who would become Pacioli's patron. The Renaissance system of patronage formed one of its primary webs of socio-economic relationships, essential not only for artists but for anyone who aspired to worldly success. Pacioli was fortunate throughout his life in his patrons, who gave him financial support, protection, favors, and access to networks of powerful men. Historian Jacob Burckhardt, Buck, Burckhardt called the first universal genius, and was a genius of both body and mind. Alberti was intellectually brilliant, physically beautiful, and an outstanding athlete. According to his, he sound like me. According to his autobiography, uh, he sound like me. Uh, which he wrote in his third person around 1438. He could, with feet tied, leap over a standing man. Could in the great cathedral. Yeah, I could jump over somebody with my feet tied. I'm doing it now. Uh, that's leapfrog. Binded leapfrog. That's binded leapfrog. I mastered that like in high school. When they tie your limbs, but you still gotta do better. Yeah, I know. I know how that shit goes. According to his autobiography, which he wrote, it's like they give you obstacles and stuff. You know, I ran hurdles, right? Like, I ran hurdles. Like I like obstacles in front of me. It actually makes like it make me ooh. I like that shit. You know. I like when it get I like it more difficult than normal. Uh, Cause it's not fun when it's too easy. It's way more fun when like it's hard when it's difficult. Throw a coin far up to a ring against the vault. And right now, more. I need more pressure. Pressure cooker, nonstop. You know I need the S500 too. Wild horses and climbing mountains. Such self-praise was common in the Renaissance, and Albertus was well founded. A leading humanist thinker accomplished in mathematics and passionately devoted to its application to art, um, architecture, and daily life, he was also one of the first to understand the enormous potential of printing press, invented in Europe in the 1450s, and of writing in the vernacular and understanding he passed on to Pacioli. Alberti was the first to formulate the mathematics of perspective to explain to painters how they could achieve a naturalistic illusion of depth in their work, or, in their other words, convey on a flat surface the impression of three dimension. In 1435, he published his method in Latin as the Pictura on Painting, the first ever treatise of a theory of painting. It was published in the vernacular the following year. The new method of perspective painting would be taken up by Piero della Francesco Leonardo da Vinci, taught by Pacioli, and would revolutionize Italian art. Departing radically from medieval thought, Alberti also valued material wealth. He expressed respect for money that was new in Europe and would characterize his century distinguishing distinguishing it from the Middle Ages, an era when money was sacred or scarce. Peasants were the majority. Barter was the primary mode of exchange. People lived largely on what they or their village could produce, and wealth was seen as an obstacle to salvation. That's my issue. Sometimes, people see money as evil, and that can be a roadblock for you too when you keep trying to see money as something that's not good. When you see it as something that's evil, then it's an excuse to stay broke. Money is not evil. It's a resource. I need to find a way to make that resource work for me. Hello. I do. Uh, Departing radically from medieval thought, Alberti also valued material wealth. He expressed a respect for money that was new in Europe and would characterize his century, distinguishing it from the Middle Ages, an era where money was scarce, peasants were in the majority, barter was the primary mode of exchange, people lived largely on what their village could produce, and wealth was seen as an obstacle to salvation. Money, wrote Alberti in 1430s, is the root of all things. With money, one can have a townhouse or a villa, and all the trades and craftsmen will toil like servants for the man who has money. He who has none goes without everything, and money is required for every purpose. Hmm. Wow. As historian Ferdinand Braudel argues, something new enters European consciousness in Alberti's writing, along with his celebration of money when thriftiness. Yeah, when I get some bread, I'm going thrift shopping. And I'm going to buy a robe. I'm going to get a robe when I get some money. I'm getting a robe. All good Borgias principles in the first flush of their youth, this radically new attitude towards wealth in the Renaissance is rarely remembered today when we celebrated almost exclusively its artistic flowering. Already contemplating his mathematical encyclopedia, Pacioli was drawn to Rome by prospect of working in the Vatican Library, built by Pope Nikolai V or Nicholas V, with Alberti's guidance. By 1455, the Vatican Library had the largest collection of manuscripts in Europe, greatly enhanced by the fall of Constantinople 2 years earlier, which prompted an influx into Italy of Greek scholars. The manuscripts, especially the works of ancient Greek science and mathematicians. As a result, in the 1470s, Pacioli's could access most of the texts of Greek and Arabic mathematics, which were available for the first time to scholars in Italy in the celebrated Renaissance libraries of Rome, Florence, Venice, Milan, and Urbino. When Alberti died in 1472, Pacioli left Rome for Naples, another large center of learning and Greek scholarship. He found work as a merchant and Abaco teacher before leaving for Perugia 2 years later, and thus began his life as an itinerant teacher. I guess like a traveling teacher. Pacioli became a traveling salesman for Hindu Arabic mathematics and spent the rest of his life wandering across Italy, teaching first as an Abaco master and later as university as professor of mathematics. Because Italy was a series of warring city states at the time, such extensive travels were dangerous unless you traveled with the protection of the church. With its exemptions, monks could journey unmolested and find accommodations almost anywhere. Perhaps for this reason, and for the career opportunities offered by the church, soon after leaving Rome, Pacioli took the vows of Franciscan Friar. By 1475, he had joined the conventual Francis- Franciscans, the division to which his new patron Giuliano della Rovere and then Pope Sixtus IV both belonged, and which was influential in San Sepolcro. The conventuals were the most liberal variety of Franciscans and allowed Pacioli to teach mathematics and travel about the countryside with almost as much freedom as a layman. And because of his mathematical accomplishments and powerful friends in the church, Pacioli was also granted special exemptions from the several rules of his brotherhood, especially those regarding the ownership of property. According to the will he left behind, Pacioli died a wealthy man. And Perugia, Pacioli embarked on his great work, the Summa de Arithmetica, Geometria, Proportion et Proportionality, Proportionalita, Proportionalita, the first encyclopedia of all mathematics known in Europe at the time, which synthesized the three major mathematical traditions he had inherited: medieval European mathematics, Arab mathematics, and the ancient Greek sources which had recently arrived in Europe from Constantinople. To support himself, he worked as a abaco teacher. Perugia's city council appointed Pacioli first as a public lecturer in abaco arithmetic and later in geometry as well. He gave lessons in Latin to a class of about 150 students who spoke a range of Italian dialects and foreign languages. In December 1477, Pacioli began work on the second and only surviving of his three unpublished Abaco textbooks for his pupils, Tractus Mathematicus ad Disciples, bruh, mathematics treatise for the students of Perugia, which he finished the following April. It includes a section of mercantile tariffs, which Pacioli copied from elsewhere without acknowledgement. It happens. That happens, man. That's part of life, man. Sometimes you just gonna take it for yourself. You're like, yeah, that was cool. Ugh. What do they call that shit? Plagiarism. This provides an instructive context in which to see borrowings in the Summa and subsequent charges of plagiarism, such as those leveled by Vasari. Borrowing without attribution was regular and acceptable practice in the Abaco tradition in which Pacioli worked. There were no readily available texts for Abaco teachers, and so they wrote their own. Copying other texts were all ultimately sourced in Fibonacci Liber Abaci. Only when these texts began to be printed following the spread of printing press in Italy in the late 1470s did questions of copyright and therefore plagiarism began to rise. In 1481, Pacioli left Pergia for Zara, a city now in Croatia, but then the capital of Venetia, territory of Dalmatia, where he wrote his third and most advanced Abaco text for his students. When he returned to Italy, Pacioli took his master's degree in theology, course which at the time included mathematics, and by the 1484 he had attained the highest academic rank of the day, magister or master. This qualified him to teach mathematics at university level, which was better paid than Abaco teaching. There were 13 universities in Italy in Pacioli's day, and each one employed only one or two mathematicians, but Pacioli would have been appointed the first chair of mathematicians at two of them, those of Perugia and Rome. Pacioli combined training in both Abaco and university mathematics was extremely rare. Only two other mathematicians in the whole of Renaissance Italy are known to possess similar expertise and training. Continuing his research for the Summa, Pacioli spent much of the early 1480s in Florence, immersing himself in the mathematics available in the splendid Medici Public Library. He praised the library for its excellent mathematical manuscripts, including Vitello's Perspectiva, a key 13th century treatise in optics based on the work and eminent Arab mathematician Ibn al-Haytham, Haytham, which was an essential source for the mathematics of artificial perspective used by Renaissance painters such as Piero della Francesca in Florence. Pacello also met and befriended many of the leading artists and sculptors of the day, including Botticelli, who had recently returned from Rome, where he had been among the artists painting the frescoes on the walls of Sistine Chapel. In 1486, Pacioli was appointed professor of mathematics in Perugia. Like any 21st century academic, he writes of these years as burdened with the demands of teaching while he attempted to write, "If I do not seem to have treated these questions properly, I pray that they may correct my way of speaking and have pity on one who feels other worries. As I feel the burden of daily reading, lecturing, and teaching, here is the beloved August city of Pergia, per, per, Pergia, Perugia. When his contract at the University of Perugia expired, Pacioli returned to his birth town for the first time in 17 years. Home with his fellow Franciscans, Pacioli immediately fell out with his monastery authorities. He went back home and they started hating. In 1491, he had a heated disagreement with the head of the conventual Franciscans and was nearly excommunicated from the order. Exactly what this disagreement was about is not known, but it may have related to complaints made about Pacioli to the order in the same year, which led to Phoenicians to forbid the monk to teach the young men of Salsapicra. So basically, he went back home trying to kick game. They started hating on him, and they're like, "You can't teach the kids." This hazy episode has prompted speculations about Pacioli. So this is Pacioli possible homosexuality. Oh, he was gay, fueled by his long intimacy with Leonardo da Vinci. Oh, Da Vinci and Pacioli, they was together, huh? Otherwise, Pacioli spent this time in San Sepolcro, quietly finishing his manuscripts on everything that was known. That's based on this book. That's not me saying that. That's the book. I'm reading the book. Y'all see me reading the book. He was lucky to have one of the best libraries in Europe. By the way, this book I got from like just being outside in DC. So DC has like public libraries where it's like you can grab a book and then you gotta put it back. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not the best at putting these shits back. But I'll grab a book if I like it. So I got this jump. I liked it because it was like, oh, accounting, you know? I don't I'm not well versed in money, so I thought that if I read this book it would help me become better with money. That was why I decided to read this book. I don't know if that is real, but that's just what I decided to do. So, I mean, now I'm seeing the origin of how we do accounting. And I remember doing accounting in middle school. No, high school. I took an accounting class in high school. So to see the origin, that's cool. A renowned intellectual, quietly finishing his manuscripts, he was lucky to have his libraries. The library had been built up by, so shout out to DC, bookish Duke of Urbino. For real, shout out to DC, man. Urbino, shout out to Trinidad. Uh, Guido Baldo, a friend of Pacioli and the son of Federico, the so many words. Montefeltro altarpiece from Piero della Francesca, mentioned earlier, a renowned intellectual. Guidobaldo had collected most of the important mathematical manuscripts of the age, including Jacobus Cremonsis, translations of Archimedes, the algebra of Quaresimi, Quaresimi, and Piero della Francesca de Conque Corporibus. These works, along with Fibonacci Liber Abaci, form the basis of Pacioli two best-selling books, The Summa and the Divine Proportion and on the Golden Ratio. In 1494, encouraged by his friends and his new patron Marco Sanuto, Fra Luca Pacioli was ready to publish the sum of his learning, Pacioli and the Printing Press. And so, age 49, Pacioli, he lived long for his back then, they didn't live that long. Pacioli traveled, yeah, my brain is starting to fart. Pacioli traveled to Venice for the second time to take advantage of the new opportunities opened up by the recently arrived printing press for those with written material to offer public. offer the public. Damn, man, it's like phlegm in my ear. In Pacioli's case, the material was the culmination of his life, work so far, his mathematical encyclopedia Summa de Arithmetica Geometria had now achieved the distinction that was almost unique in 15th century Italy. He was experienced teacher in both commercial abaco and speculative university mathematics. He had also spent 6 years as a merchant's assistant in the busiest trading center in Europe, and he had for almost 20 years been studying the entire body of mathematics known to the Mediterranean of his day. The rediscovered work of the ancient Greeks, the Latin mathematics of the medieval schoolmen and advances of Arabs, the hefty manuscripts he brought with him to Venice contain this collective mathematical knowledge based largely on Euclid's Elements and work of Fibonacci. His manuscripts would become the first printed book to deal with Hindu-Arabic arithmetic and its offshoot algebra, and contained the first printed treatise of Venetian bookkeeping. These two great contributions to the scientific and commercial life of Europe, its transmission of algebra and of double entry bookkeeping, make the Summa the work of the which Pacioli is now remembered. As the leading mathematician of the moment, Pacioli was able to find both a patron to fund the printing of his enormous manuscript and a printer in Venice who was willing to publish it. The printer was Pagino de Paganini, who had set up his printing shop in Venice in 1483 when the communication technology was becoming well established in the city. Although printing had become invented 3 decades earlier in Germany, probably by Mainz metalworker Johann Gutenberg. Johann Gutenberg, I know him. The art of printing numbers. Yo, all of these guys was coming up at the same time. That's crazy. Johann Gutenberg. Um, the art of printing numbers and figures accurately and efficiently had only been invented the year before before Puginini opened his press. The German printer Erhard Ratdold, who had been based in Venice, the up-and-coming center of the new industry, had noticed that while many works of the ancients were printed in Venice, almost nothing mathematical had appeared, so Ratdolt devised a way to reproduce tables of figures and other mathematical symbols accurately, and in 1482 printed the first mathematics text of the humanist program, Euclid's Elements. 4 years earlier, in 1478, the Venetian Republic had produced one of the earliest known printed books on mathematics, an Abaco treatise in the vernacular known as Trivija arithmetic. It is a telling moment in the history of printing. Humanists had been demanding a printed edition of Euclid, but the first printed mathematics book was for merchants, not scholars. Commercial imperatives and practical necessities drove the early printers' decisions about the books published as much of the competing agenda of scholars and the church, much to the outrage of humanists such as the celebrated Erasmus of Rotterdam, while making extensive use of printing to decimate his own work. Erasmus was scandalized by the fact that so soon after its invention, the press had escaped the control of the scholars and fallen into the hands of the merchants and the businessmen. Duh. Everybody want to figure out how to make money off of something. Pacioli mentor Leon Battista Alberti was one of the first to understand the revolutionary significance of the new technology. Writing in Rome in the 1460s, Alberti gives a sense of quantum leap and communications that printing provided. We greatly approve the German inventor who, in the times, has made it possible by certain pressing down of characters to have more than 200 volumes written out in 100 days from an original, with the labor of no more than 3 men, for with only one downwards pressure a large sheet is written out. The first book printed in Venice, Scersco Epistolae ad Familiares, an ancient Roman classic, has been published in 1469. But the printing house of Venice struggled to um, find a market for their unwidely printed manuscripts of classics and religious works, and within 5 years, 9 of Venice 12 printers had gone bust. It seemed that new technology was not commercially viable, but the merchant bankers thought otherwise. They soon realized the commercial potential of printed books and invented large sums required to printing presses running. To the merchants of Venice, the printed book was simply a commodity like any other, could be sold along the trade routes of European like pepper, silk, wax, and other luxurious goods. Venice became the center of the new communications technology, the Silicon Valley of Renaissance. And many of the first printed works of business and commerce were published in the city on the lagoon. Grandma Cece, hold that page right there. My late Grandma Cece. Um, hey, I'm, I'm gonna take a break.
Sometimes I'll be ready to shit like this. We about to listen right now, bro. We about to listen right now, bro. With that, the 2025 season.
Mm, 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 mm. Mm, 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 mm. Hey yo, give me a second. Give me 1 second. I'm still here. Just give me a second.
I put Prada shoes on her, they're very rare. When it comes to me or her, why should I care? I be throwing you a hug, bottom to my left. I feel like Colo Lucifer, hopping out his fan. Oh, put it on my kid when I say I got you, you my dog. I be in this fashion, that's everything like JoJo Bizarre. How you gon' let me like then, girl, you still fuck me raw. Alone, lovers we not friends, lovers we not friends, yeah, lovers we not friends. Fuck me to the end, yeah. I put Prada shoes on her, they're very rare. When it comes to me or her, why should
I really hope I don't get copyrighted, but I just wanted to show support because I was singing that song the whole time. That's the song that I'm humming. You know, friend, Makai Alexander. And look, bruh, I listen. I don't know this person from a can of paint, but I listen to music from anybody. If I like your song, I like your song. So you just got like a shout out, bruh. Like literally, I just put you on the yeah, bruh. Put you on yeah. He probably will never see this either. Like he probably will never see that I was showing love, bruh. But hey, y'all go check out Makai Alexander. Lovers not friends. Here we go, right here, right here. Lovers Not Friends by Makai Alexander. This guy is a good artist, bro. He's tough. I think he underground right now, but he going up though. You know? So lovers we not friends. Lovers we not friends. Lovers we not friends. Lovers we That's all tough. When it comes to why should I care? Yeah, that shit tough. By the time Pacioli returned in 1494, Venice had become the publishing capital of Southern Europe, with more than 268 printing shops run mostly by experts from Germany and France. They came to Venice because of the favorable business conditions, its large labor force, low printing costs, stable liberal government run by merchants for merchants, readily available patronage, and its vigorous intellectual community, which could provide the translators, proofreaders, and scholarly advisors that a successful printing press required. The time and labor saving advantages of the printing press were huge compared to the old medieval communications technology of manuscripts hand, handwritten by scribes. For example, in 1483, the Ripoli press charged three times as much for setting up the printing translation of Plato's dialogue as a scribe did for duplicating the same work. But the press produced 1,025 copies. The scribe describe one copy making printed books more than 300 times cheaper than manuscripts. Books rapidly became widely available and affordable to new class of readers. In 1500, the price of a book in Venice was about a week's salary for a teacher or a skilled artisan, equivalent to the price of a good desktop computer today. The printing press created an explosion in demand for multiple copies of instructions, manuals, and texts for students and teachers, and their sudden availability to a wide audience helped to break down the culture of secrecy that had prevailed in medieval Europe, spawned by the guilds, who were more concerned with guarding their trade secrets than with publicizing their knowledge and technical skills. With the printing press came an avalanche. Bro, every human nature is stupid, bro. Like, why, when you gain some sort of leverage, you want to keep it for yourself? Why is that what humans just naturally want to do? Bro, the more you give is the more you receive. An avalanche on the how to books, similarly to many hundreds of DIY books published each year today. I'm showing you how to DIY. live, explaining the previously arcane arts of everything from playing musical instruments to keeping accounts of double entry. This enthusiasm for the new technology was particularly pronounced among Renaissance mathematicians, who, according to historian Paul Lawrence Rose, were possessed of an almost missionary faith in the power of the printing press to spread knowledge. Pacioli was one who led the way into this new world, far from considering vernacular translations beneath him, and despite being fluent in Latin, Pacioli broke with scholarly traditions and wrote his encyclopedia in Italian, the language of the people. He also encouraged the use of the new mathematics and its Hindu Arabic numerals, lamenting those merchants who still use Roman numerals uh, and the old methods in their arithmetic. His Summa was emblematic of the new printing programs. As was typical in these early days of printing, Pacioli stayed in Venice during the printing of his encyclopedia, visiting Paganini print shop daily to correct and add new material to his manuscripts as it went to press. The initial print run, estimated to have been around 2,000 copies, would have taken from 9 to 12 months to complete, at the rate of one sheet of paper. 2 pages per day of the 615-page book. Pacioli writes in the Summa of his production, saying that he worked day and night with industry in the workshop of the clever man Paganini, correcting his manuscripts with his own hand. The Summa de Arithmetica, Geometria, Proportione et Proportionalita. The printing of Summa was funded by Pacioli's patron Marco Sanuto, a professor of mathematics from a famous uh, patrician family whose intellect, virtue, and thoughtful generosity Pacioli praises at length in his introduction. With an eye to eternity, he says that Sanuto had made this volume of mine possible so that it may be handed down to posterity. But Pacioli dedicated the Sumo to the Duke of Urbino, Guidibaldo de Montefeltro, whose library he had used for his mathematical researches and who may also have been Pacioli's student at one time. In his dedication to the Duke, Pacioli outlines his intentions for his work, which were revolutionary at the time when books were written in Latin and destined for cloistered school scholarly elite. Rather the Summa is written in the language of the people so it can be read by each and every man and used in every day life. Pacioli tells the Duke that he has written this book because he desires to be used to Guidibaldo's subject, and he takes great pains to stress that although I am not ignorant of equivalent style and realize that you should be addressed with the wave of eloquence, since you are so learned in Ciceronian eloquence. He has decided to write his encyclopedia in the vernacular because if they were written in Latin, which I said each and every man could not understand it, I have written it so that it may bring the advantage and pleasure to those who in literature are not learned or are learned or not. Mathematics, say Pacioli, applies to almost every human activity from astrology, cosmography, and theology, architecture, painting, sculpture, and music to business, law, and military strategy. Why the citadels of states, the walls of cities, the towers, trenches, ramparts, mounds, and all the other defensive and offensive weapons of war are nothing else but geometry and proportion, says Pacioli, giving the examples of Archimedes' famous defense of Syracuse from the Romans with the mathematical knowledge which he used to build weapons, including a huge crane. Now known as the Claw of Archimedes, it allegedly lifted enemy boats out of the harbor and upturned them, drowning all their warriors. Pacioli concludes by saying that if you examine carefully each one of the other sciences and liberal arts, there is not one which does not use in some way harmony, measure, and proportion. According to him, without these mathematical properties, everything ceases to exist. The Summa title and introduction are in Latin, but the main text is in Florentine vernacular and Italian dotted with Latin, the Greek words of abbreviation, and expressions from the local dialect, which was comprehensible to a large audience of merchants, businessmen, students, artists, and technicians, as well as the more broad-minded scholars otherwise used to reading in Latin. Pacioli deliberately championed the vernacular not only because the subject matter will be more fruit if there are more people to read it, but also because, as was the first to understand, Latin was not all suited to explicating mathematics. To make his prose as clear as possible for his readers, Pacioli also took his images and analogies from daily life. For example, he damn, bro, I can't get it, bro. It's like the phlegm is right in there, and I can't get it, bro. I don't like that feeling. Pacioli also took his images and analogies from daily life. For example, he explains 8 different ways of multiplying. The sixth method was generally known as the square cell sieve or net because of the way the numbers were all set on the page. But Pacioli called it the gelosia because, as he says, the arrangement of the work resembles a lattice or gelosia. By gelosia, we understand that grading, which it is the custom to place at the windows of houses where young ladies or nuns reside, so that they cannot be easily seen. Many such abound in the noble city of Venice. The passage, with its image and antidote, inspired by the everyday sights of Venice, is typical of Pacioli's mathematics. The Summa is divided into 2 volumes, but all known surviving copies, estimated to be 162 copies except for one, are bound into one book. Volume 1 contains 9 chapters. Chapters 1 through 7 cover arithmetic. Chapter 8 is the first systematic exposition in the vernacular of algebra. Chapter 9 on commerce is divided into 12 sections. The first 10 on matters such as barter. Oh, that sounds like a big ass dog. The dog barking outside, and it sounds like a big one. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Hey, yo. Hello? Can you hear me? Hello? Testing, testing, 1, 2. Hello? Hey, I'm gonna stop there. I'm on page 75. We started on like 20 something. It's about to be 10 o'clock in the trenches, bro. I don't want to do too much. I still gotta wake up and see these people tomorrow, so I don't want no smoke. I would keep going though. I wanted to go to page 100. I'm just reading too slow. But we did 50 pages. This is the most pages I read in a long, bro. Probably all of last year I didn't read that many pages. I'm not gonna lie. So this year I do want to make that a different thing. Like I want to read a lot of books this year. So I want to probably put that on film. If I can knock out this book in 2 to 3 sittings and start another one, that will be one more book than I read last year, I think. I probably read a book last year. But either way, that's embarrassing. I can't say that I want a life where I decode words and then I don't read. Then I'm gonna be average like the rest of you. And I'm not average. So I'm gonna do what others won't. And I'm gonna keep putting it on wax. And then your favorite artist is gonna copy me later on. And then, but we'll know who the source is. Yeah? So I'm grateful. Thank you guys so much. This is a new series, Manhakim Reads. Man, if you're watching this, because nobody's watching it right now while I'm recording it, but later on, just like the video, comment, and subscribe. And then comment a book that you want to read. Probably won't get no interactions now, but later when this shit falls into place and all that, and then everybody that, Mandela effect and all that, just put it in there and make it look like, But as of right now, you see the views. It's a little dry. It's a little dry. So this is your boy.
Before you are bottom to my left. I feel like Colo Lucifer in another thing. Oh, put it on my king and say I got you, you my dog. I be in this fashion, that's every day my art. If it's well nothing, I jump to the top. How you let me like that, girl, you still for me raw. All my girl, you toxic, what I need, but
Love we not friends. Love we not friends.
Love we not friends. Fuck me to the end, yeah. I can punish you on hard, that's very rare. When it comes to me or her, why should I?
I'm tripping. I'm not even supposed to be playing people's music. And then it's not like I know this person. I don't know this person. I like the person's music though. Show love. Show love. You don't gotta be a hater. It don't cost nothing to show a nigga some love, bruh. One day somebody will do that for me. Somebody will dance. I won't even know it happened. But somebody will react to my music on like live and then they will do something for me. So this is the book. Double Entry by Jane Gleason White. This is what she looks like. Shout out to you. I'm reading your book right now. It's a white lady. She holds degrees in economics and accounting and is studying for her PhD in creative writing and literature. She has worked at the Peggy. What is your obsession with these words, Jane? Guggenheim Museum in Venice and currently lives in Sydney, Australia. She blogs at janegleasonwhites.com. So before I go, I'm going to go on that website. I'm going to show y'all what it looks like so I can give her some love. Alright, here she is right here. So Gleason is a writer, a reader and writer living. She's in Australia. She received a 2025 Whitlam essay residency to write about belief, ancestral hauntings, born in the body, my mother's silence, my mother's nation shame. She wrote a couple of books. She's an author of 4 books. So she wrote this. She wrote about capitalism, 6 capital. She looks to be well accomplished. Let's see news. Oh, this is her. April of 2025. She was talking about some stuff. Blog. Jane Gleason White. This is her name, guys. I don't know if this is like a... Oh, this is her blog that she does. She does a blog. Cool. Books. These are all her books. Boom, here go Double Entry. You could probably buy it on the website. I don't know. And the essay. She got essays too. Let me see the medias. I don't know, man. I can't. I don't know all that. Oh, maybe I should write her a letter. Alright, it's whatever. So yeah, man, I really appreciate you guys tuning in with me. For real. We're gonna I'll try to do this tomorrow, I think. I'm either gonna make a beat, I'm gonna do this, or I'm gonna study coding. But everything that I do, I'm putting it on wax for y'all to see.